Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And it is Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations for making it through to the end of another week. I hope you guys have a glorious, wonderful, either fun or relaxing or a mixture of the two weekend planned ahead for yourselves. I know I've got an interesting weekend ahead of myself. When I'm done the show here today, I'm actually immediately jumping into the car, driving out to Anaheim, and going to D23. That's right. It's D23 today, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the big panel is Disney Plus. The big Disney Plus panel. I'm anticipating a new look at Mandalorian, which should be a lot of fun. Probably a lot of big reveals, talking about some of the shows they've already announced, maybe announce some other shows they don't have. Very exciting. And of course, the big Disney movies panel that'll cover all things Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Disney Studios proper, things like that. And oh boy, I'm looking forward to seeing just how many ways they avoid talking about Spider-Man. I'm really excited to find out how many ways they avoid talking about Spider-Man. I guarantee you there's not going to be any Q&A. There's not going to be any Q&A at D23 this week. Because they will not risk somebody getting up to a microphone. Yeah, so how could you possibly botch things this bad with Spider-Man? They're not going to let that happen. No Q&A at D23 this week. No Q&A. I'm still looking forward to it, though. Like, I think personally, like we talked about this before, I think we're going to get a new trailer. I know a lot of people are saying, if you look at the patterns, the way they've done things, they'll probably do it behind the scenes. And that's possible, too. That may be what they do. I actually think they're going to drop an actual trailer. And I mean, if they really want to just avoid the elephant in the room of the whole Spider-Man conversation, dropping a Star Wars trailer would probably be a good start. Yeah, if they want to distract, like, hey, tell us about this Spider-Man. And meanwhile, Disney's like, look over here, shaking their keys. Look over here, don't look over there, look over here. I got a feeling that's what's going to be going on. But no, still very excited about D23. There's a bunch of things I'm looking forward to them talking about, particularly. I'm curious to see, because I think they will, but I don't know for sure. I think they're going to talk about the Marvel MCU from 2022 to 2023, because at Comic-Con, they focused all their discussions on 2020 and 2021, which of course was very curious because we're like, well, wait a minute, we already know Doctor Strange 2's coming. You already got the director and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't talk about it. We know Black Panther 2 is coming. We know Captain Marvel 2 is coming. We know they're going to do another Avengers, like all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, they didn't talk about it. So I have a feeling, I'm hoping that they're going to talk about that, see some Mandalorian, see some Star Wars, see what Pixar's got going on. I'm actually very excited about it. Now, I've been crapping on Disney a lot the last couple of days. And that's because I'm a Disney fan. I will be more harsh in my criticism of the things I am a big fan of. I think that's only natural and normal, If they were if there had been some news coming out about some mismanagement of the Twilight series, I wouldn't get all that worked up about it because, frankly, no insult to Twilight or to those who like Twilight, but it's not an important franchise to me. So you probably wouldn't see me get all that worked up about some discussion or some mismanagement or whatever of a Twilight franchise. I'll talk about it. Say, okay, well, that's interesting. Maybe they shouldn't have done that. But when it's something that I like, and I respect, and I'm a fan of, whether it's in sports like the Toronto Maple Leafs. You'll never hear anybody criticize the Toronto Maple Leafs more than me, because I am the world's biggest fan. I bleed blue and white. Or something like what Disney does. But when Disney does something dumb, I will care more about it because I'm a big fan of Disney. And I really think Disney has completely botched this Spider-Man deal. I've been talking about this for a couple of days. They have completely slaughtered the Spider-Man deal. That doesn't mean it can't be salvaged. It doesn't mean Disney can't turn it around and them and Sony can work something out. Absolutely. But I've been very adamant and on record. This is 100% Disney's fault. This whole Spider-Man thing is 100% Disney's fault. And I put all the blame for the current situation squarely on the shoulders of Disney. I believe that unless you have mouse-eared shaped rose-colored glasses over your eyes, you cannot come to any other conclusion other than when you look at the information that this is Disney's fault. And Disney can fix it. They can. Them and Sony can come together, work something out, make this thing happen. I'm hoping that we get an announcement today. I'm thinking there's a chance. Kind of like Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. I'm thinking there's a chance that we may get an announcement today or tomorrow about Disney and Sony coming together, coming to an agreement. Now, I know there are some reports going around out there right now that such a deal has already been reached. I don't buy those at all. Again, just when you look at where that information is coming from, I don't buy that at all. But at the same time, I've said for the last couple of days, I do believe they can reach an agreement, and it could be done by this weekend. And I jokingly around talked about how wouldn't it be awesome if at D23 Bob Iger comes out on stage and says, I tweeted about this too, and says, there's been a lot of talk about Spider-Man lately, and to help me talk about it, I want to bring out my good friend Tom Rothman. And then Tom Rothman comes walking out on stage. The two guys do the DX crotch chops, and they say, we're doing 10 more movies together. And the crowd goes nuts, and the internet blows up. Look, as facetious and as hyperbolic as that was, I do believe there's a chance of something like that happening. I do believe there's a chance that this weekend cooler heads have prevailed, and the two sides have come, we've come to an agreement. But I'll tell you this. What cannot happen, and I will be surprised. Now, maybe Sony is really stupid, but I'm going to tell you right now, the dumbest thing Sony could do right now, and maybe they will do it, but it would be the dumbest thing in the world they could do, is to agree to any sort of cost sharing. That would be the dumbest thing they could do. The dumbest 100% worst thing they could do is to agree to any sort of co-financing deal with Disney. Now, I've talked about this a little over the last couple of days, but I'm still seeing people completely misunderstand how it means. So let me say it again here. Indulge me for a moment. Some people see the notion of Disney being willing to step up and co-finance this thing as a good thing. Oh, Disney's willing to help cover the costs. Isn't that great? Isn't it wonderful that Disney's willing to help pay for the costs of the movies with Sony? Isn't that good for Sony? No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. And we will use our example, the non-existent character in Spider-Man Far From Home, Night Monkey. Just as an example, okay? Just for the sake of our example, let's use Night Monkey as our example. Okay. Some people were jokingly saying that, well, with Disney and Sony splitting ways, maybe Disney can just make a Night Monkey movie instead. And it's a joke, I know. But seriously, Disney couldn't make a Night Monkey movie because Spider-Man Far From Home was paid for by Sony. Therefore, any intellectual property rights to Night Monkey belongs to Sony because they paid for it. They're the financier of the movie. That belongs to them. The Zendaya MJ character, some people are going, oh, well, I guess if Sony makes their standalone movies, they can't use Zendaya's MJ character. Yeah, they can, because they paid for it. They're the financiers of the movie. They own any new IP that comes up in Homecoming, Far From Home, or any standalone Spider-Man movie because they're the financiers. Where this whole thing about Disney wants to co-finance, oh, isn't that great? Here's where this comes in. If Sony allows Disney to become a co-financer and to come into a financing agreement with them, then the ownership of any new IP that comes up in those movies comes into question. As a matter of fact, if Disney is one of the financiers of the movie, then they actually get some claim to the IP in the movie themselves. It even brings Spider-Man's IP into question. That is something Sony cannot do. they can give Disney 20%. And I'm sorry, but I keep hearing this idiotic refrain. Well, Disney does all the work. No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't. But on top of that, everybody just keeps saying and thinking, oh, that all that Disney's getting out of this, out of the current deal. Remember, this current deal, Disney negotiated the current deal. People keep conveniently ignoring this. That this deal that suddenly now people are pretending is a bad deal for Disney, this is a deal, the existing deal is a deal that Disney negotiated. And Disney said, this is a great fair deal. And they're right, it was. But see, people keep saying this whole thing, they keep ignoring the bigger picture. They keep saying, well, it's not fair that Disney does all the work. No, they didn't do all the work. It's not fair that Disney does all the work and only gets 5%. If that was it, sure. But the 5% they were getting, and I think it's cool for Disney to ask for more than 5%. I do. I think it's totally fair for Disney to ask for more than 5%. But you got to remember, that 5% is pure first dollar profit. That means, number one, they didn't pay $1 for the movie, right? They had all their production fees covered by Sony. And then Sony has to cut them a $55 million check just for Spider-Man Far From Home. So Sony covered all the expenses. Disney gets a check for $55 million, which is 5% of what Spider-Man Far From Home made at the box office. Plus, and this is the part everybody ignores, plus Disney got to keep 100% of all the merchandising rights, which has made them a fortune. Plus, Disney gets to keep 100% of the box office of the movies that Spider-Man appears in the MCU. They don't give a single dollar of the MCU movies that Spider-Man appears in. They don't give a single dollar to Sony for that. They get to keep 100% of that. Think about that. No money for Sony from those other movies that their character appears in. They get $0 for that. And Disney kept 100% of the merchandising fees. They keep all that. And they get first dollar gross percentage profit. It's a crazy good deal for Disney that Disney themselves was the architect of. Now, is it fair that Disney may want a little bit of a higher percentage? Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything's going great. Absolutely. But the problem is Disney isn't just asking for a higher percentage. And by the way, there are some reports going around right now that are saying Disney only asked for a 70-30 split. That is not true. Deadline is firmly holding to this. They've responded to this, saying, no. The thing Disney went to Sony with was absolutely a 50-50 split. There's this new report going around. The misinformation campaign has begun. There's a new report going around saying, oh, no, they only went and asked for a 70-30 split. Deadline is countering that and saying, no, we stand by our report. It was a 50-50 thing there. But the bigger thing is this. I even think 70-30 is doable. The problem is that Disney, as a part of that 70-30 split, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, is asking for a co-financing agreement. And that's the part Sony would be idiotic to allow Disney to get their foot in the door with. That's the part Disney can, or that Sony cannot allow. And maybe they will. And if they do, they're bigger idiots than I thought. But that's the part they can't budge on. A 30% box office gross? I could see Sony going for that. I don't think that would be completely unreasonable. But a 70-30 with a co-financing deal is something Sony cannot consider. And they might, but they absolutely shouldn't. And every other studio knows this. And every other studio understands. Here's the problem. Sometimes we in film fandom, and I'm guilty of this, you're probably guilty of it, we've all done it. What we as film fans quite often do is we are very lazy when it comes to getting information. I'm guilty of this. You're guilty of this. We've all done this. We are often quite lazy at getting information, and we'll just see a headline and then form our entire opinions on just a headline that we read. But when you get into the details and you start realizing what's being asked for and what's at stake, you start to realize that the issue isn't as simple as a one-line headline might lead you to believe. And I see a lot of people reacting online right now to headlines. And nobody's talking about all the actual, when you read the actual reports and you're seeing what's actually on the table, you start to get a better picture of it. And this is coming from a guy who, I am a big Disney fan. I am. I like a lot of Disney stuff. I don't like everything Disney does, but I am a big Disney fan. I count myself as a big Disney fan. And believe me, I would love to sit here and tell you and say, the righteousness of Disney's cause must march on. I would love to do that. I would love to. But I can't, because it's not true. Disney is wrong here. At least by the way I'm looking at all the information. I want to be able to jump up and say, let's rally behind Disney and blah, blah, blah. But I can't, because they're wrong. They're wrong. And I think Disney knows they're wrong. But again, who knows? Who knows how this is going to shake out? I still believe with, let me see if I can get this done, with all of my fingers crossed, that, it almost looked like I was doing a shocker. Anyway, with all of my fingers crossed, I believe that a deal can get done. Maybe even by the end of D23, which I am leaving for today. I mean, this is a debate and a thing that's been raging on and on and on and all this kind of stuff for it feels like for a week now, and it's only been a couple of days. But it is nutty how passionate, how intense, and myself included, I'm guilty of it too, how passionate and how intense this whole discussion is done, because we all like what's happening with Spider-Man right now. We all do. First of all, I love what's happening on Sony's side. I really enjoyed Venom. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which Sony did without Marvel, is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. I really enjoy the partnership between Sony and Disney with what they did with Homecoming. I really liked Far From Home. Not as much as Homecoming, but I really liked Far From Home. I like Spider-Man's appearances in the MCU. I'm not a fan of the whole Iron Man Jr. angle. Yes, I know, but that doesn't mean I can't like the property overall, you know? I'm really hoping they work this out. Now, I've said this before, and I will say it again. I think Sony will be fine. If a deal doesn't get made, I believe Sony will be fine. If a deal doesn't get made, I believe Marvel and the MCU will be fine. I don't think either Sony or Marvel needs each other. I don't think either side needs each other. I think they'll both be fine. But just because you don't need something doesn't mean you can't greatly benefit from something. And I believe, in as much that I think Sony and Marvel don't need each other, I think they would both benefit greatly, as they have over the last couple of years. Marvel has benefited greatly from this deal. Sony has benefited greatly from this deal. They've got to find a way to make this work. They got to find the way to make this work. Now, look, I didn't plan on doing today's show, spending the first 20 minutes going over this whole Spider-Man situation with Disney more, but it's like, how do you not talk about this right now? Until this thing gets resolved, how can we not talk about this? We were talking about one of the biggest movie properties in the world. One of the biggest movie properties in the biggest genre in the movie world right now. How do we not talk about this? This is kind of crazy. Anyway, well, I'm sure when we get to the live questions today, I'm sure there's going to be more of you guys who want to talk about this some more, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this Spider-Man stuff. But before we get to all that, today, guys, is a very laid back, relaxed, informal day here on the John Campea Show. We're going to talk about one or two big topics that have come up. But basically for today, I want today, Friday, the day that I'm leaving to go to D23. And by the way, I am going to be doing a video from Anaheim later this afternoon. I'm going to do a live stream later this afternoon, doing a complete breakdown and debrief on the D+ panel from D23 today. because my hotel is right beside the convention center. As soon as the panel is done this afternoon, I'm going to head back to my hotel room, boom, and I'm going to do a live stream. Hopefully, the hotel insisted to me their internet's fast enough, so we'll see if that works out. But I'm going to be doing a live stream later this afternoon, breaking down everything they talk about at D23 today, and same thing tomorrow. Tomorrow as well, we're going to do a complete breakdown of the movie presentation for D23 as well, so keep your eyes open for that stuff. All right. Before we get to live questions, stuff like that, there's one big thing that kind of came up in the last little bit. Speaking about Sony and Tom Holland, that isn't actually Spider-Man related. This is kind of interesting here. Two things regarding the Uncharted movie. Now, a lot of us have been looking forward to a possible Uncharted movie, and there's been a very positive development and a somewhat negative development. First of all, the positive development, the brand new PlayStation Productions, the new company that Sony has formed specifically so PlayStation can oversee development of their own video game titles put together. The Uncharted movie is now being moved by Sony under their PlayStation Productions division. PlayStation Productions will be the lead producers on this. Along with them, the other lead producer on this is a guy by the name of Chuck Roven, and I'll get into why that's important in just a second. But anyway, the negative thing about the story, though, right now, is that I've never pronounced Dan's last name properly. Dan Trachtenberg has exited the project. He is no longer the director on the film. They're saying that it's not going to interrupt their plans. They're saying they're going to have another director on board here very quickly, and that they're still going to beginning production on an Uncharted movie in the beginning of 2020. So that's now only just a number of months away at this point. Now, this is all fairly significant stuff. Let's talk about the departure of Trachtenberg, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name. It's unfortunate. I think he's a decent director, I do, and I was looking forward to seeing what he would do on this particular film. That said, sometimes you lose directors. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but I cannot help but believe it probably has something to do with the other shakeup, the fact that the movie's now being placed under PlayStation Productions. So, that's a big thing. The thing that I found most interesting, though, was the fact that Chuck Roven is going to be the lead producer on the film. Now, if you're wondering to yourself, why does that name sound so familiar? Why does that name Chuck Roven sound so familiar? Here's why. Chuck Roven was the lead producer on all three Christopher Nolan Batman movies, on Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. He's also been pretty integral to other movies I really, really like. Films like 12 Monkeys, he was the lead producer on. Films like Three Kings, which I really loved, he was a producer on. Films like one of my all-time favorite comic book films, the most underrated comic book film of all time, Man of Steel. He was also the lead producer on Wonder Woman. Now, at the same time, he's produced some bupkis. He was also a producer on Suicide Squad. So there's that. But he was also a producer on American Hustle, which has got a lot of Academy Award buzz. He was a producer on Get Smart, which I really like. He was a producer on The Bank Job with Jason Statham, which I really like. So he's done a couple of crappy things too, but he's also done a lot of really good stuff. And most importantly, he's had some great success in the comic book genre. And I think that will translate well to a video game genre, because in some ways, the whole Uncharted thing is a little bit of a superhero movie in a way. So I found that very, very interesting. The departure of the director is never a good thing. It's never a good thing. It's a bad thing. But it sounds like there was a bit of a shakeup with the film, and it sounds like they're going in a certain direction. I got to tell you what, overall, while I think the loss of the director is a negative thing, I think overall this is a pretty good day. I think if you are a fan of Uncharted and you're somebody who's been looking forward to this movie, I think the positive news outweighs the unfortunate negative news, and I think overall it's a pretty good day. So it's going to be interesting to see how this sort of unfolds. All right. One other thing I want to talk about here quick. One of the things I'm really looking forward to seeing over at D23 is Mandalorian. And we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up that they've just put out, in advance of D23, which starts today, they've put out the new poster for Mandalorian. I got to tell you, I love this poster. First of all, I really like the title treatment. And by the way, good poster doesn't mean it's going to be a good show. It could be an absolute bag of crap for all we know. But I love this poster. First of all, the title treatment, which is right here. I like the title treatment. I think that looks really good. I actually really like the color spectrum they decided to use. There's a very Star Wars, Luke Skywalker looking out at the sun sort of feel. The color palette I think is great. But it also, with the imagery we see, like just change that spaceship into a horse tied onto a post, and the gunfighter coming out here. It's got that great Western sort of motif feel to it. By the way, did you notice back here? Look right here. Sand crawlers. So I'm thinking we're getting some Jawas in there. I mean, look, that's clearly between that and that little building right there. It looks very much like Luke's, the Skywalker family home on Tatooine. Looks very much like it. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it looks very much like it. But just when you look at the ship and the guy, it's got a Western feel to it. So overall, I like the color scheme. I like the title treatment. I like the Western feel. I'm digging this poster. I am digging this poster. Again, good poster doesn't mean it's going to be a good show. It could be a crappy show. Maybe it will be. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. But as far as the poster goes, I got to tell you guys, I'm really down with it. I'm down with it. I like it a lot. I think it looks really great. Okay. Anyway, guys, that's all the formal stuff I want to talk about. I want to use the rest of the day here on this Friday before I leave, to take your questions. Now, before we get to the live questions, I had a few questions left over from yesterday, and I was a little bit under the weather last night. I didn't get around to doing the companion video for the questions left over from yesterday. So I just thought, you know what? There were only a few of them. So I figured we'll just get those things taken care of right now here on the show. So first, let's go back and take care of some of the leftover comments from yesterday's show, all right? So we're going to start off with Mason Larkins, who writes, so if Sony continues with Tom Holland, what are the odds we see him maybe running away to Uncle Ben and maybe changing his name to Ben Reilly? Okay, first of all, the whole Spider-Man clone saga is, while I enjoyed it, I liked the Spider-Man clone story. A lot of people didn't, so I don't know if they're going to go into Ben Reilly stuff. So I think that feels like a little bit of a stretch. So I think they will do their next movie with Tom Holland, and they're just going to continue on, just ignoring the events of the MCU. I'm not basing that on anything. That's just me speculating as a fan. But I don't think they're going to the Ben Reilly thing, because I don't think that's something they're excited to get back into, because I don't know if they're afraid of the connotations with that. Isaac Majid writes, how is Tom Rothman in charge of Sony? I don't understand how you can make constantly bad decisions like blocking Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool for 5 years and still become head of another major studio. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people on the outside of the studios, like for instance, I don't like how Disney has handled the Spider-Man situation. All right? I don't like it. But just because I don't like this one situation doesn't mean we stop recognizing that Bob Iger is the most revered movie executive, and he's not even a movie executive. He's the head of Disney. Disney is more than just their movie studio. They're a worldwide conglomerate of a ton of different things. But that Bob Iger isn't one of the most talented, gifted, and revered executives in all of the world. But because something happens with a Spider-Man movie people don't like, I saw people saying, get rid of Iger. Hashtag get rid of Iger. What? It's like, are you crazy? Just because he didn't like this one thing? It's like getting a guy in the NBA who shoots for 40 points a game. Oh, but he missed a free throw once. Get rid of that guy. He missed a free throw. Are you going to ignore everything? The fact of the matter is, the reason Tom Rothman keeps getting these gigs is because for every stupid thing he's done, and look, we could sit here and go over a laundry list of the dumb things he's done, but he's also done a lot of great things for the companies he's worked for. As far as he blocked Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool for 5 years, hindsight is 2020. Remember, no studio was sure what to do with Deadpool. Even Fox wasn't sure what to do with Deadpool for a while. So let's not play this hindsight game where, oh, like, well, now we know it's a big, brilliant thing. Boy, you must have been dumb to drag your heels on it. No, everybody was unsure about Deadpool. So let's not throw anybody under the bus on hindsight. I know everybody likes to rewrite history, but if you go back to that time, there was a huge question mark about whether anybody would take a chance on it, because even people who wanted to see it weren't sure it could actually work. So let's not play hindsight there. James Master Legends writes, now Sony can make that Aunt May movie they always want to make. I don't think there was ever any real movement to get that done. I think it was mentioned, but nobody really wanted to do it. But then again, with Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, more people might be open to the idea of an Aunt May standalone movie at this point. Eli Gray writes, the negotiations were between Alan Horn and Tom Rothman. Well, they got involved at one point. They wasn't always between them, but they did get involved in it. Disney asked for 30% partnership. Yes and no. Deadline is fiercely sticking to the thing that no. Disney walked in asking for 50. They did. Now, it may have then evolved into 30, but it became the important thing to understand here is Disney was asking for more than just a certain percentage cut of the box office. They wanted a co-financing agreement where they take partial ownership of those movies. And that's the part that Sony, rightfully so, was saying, no. You do not get part stake in this. This is our character. But anyway, asked for a 30% partnership, not profits. Sony said no and walked. Marvel didn't ask for a 50% split and said it's a made-up number. And again, Deadline is firm. Deadline's not some little raggy blog. All right? And they are standing by that. They are firmly standing by that. And by the way, they are also firmly standing by Sony went back to them with several counter offers, and it was Disney that walked. So there's a lot of he said, she said going on here. And I'm not saying necessarily 100% believe one or the other. I'm just saying listen to all the things that are being said. And it's a mess. Like either way, it's a mess. Suthius writes, hey, Mr. C, now watch Disney punk us and confuse the hell out of us even more when Spider-Man 3 is announced at D23. Just you wait and see. It would be, look, I still think that's a possibility. Unlikely, but a possibility. I'm hoping this happens. Eli Gray follows up from his previous one. Sony revealed Kevin Feige's been shadow producing. That's the way that's being phrased is not accurate. But anyway, shadow producing Spider-Man movies since The Amazing Spider-Man, including Venom. So he'd share the blame on bad films. Horn forbid Feige to keep producing uncredited Almost No Money. Again, there's a lot of he said, she said, and a lot of stuff being surfaced. Some of it's BS. Some of it has a shade of truth to it. I wouldn't get into that too much personally. Faithful Steve writes, look at my last message. Thanks. Have a great morning. I don't know what your last message was. Sorry about that, Faithful Steve. The last shady walking Marvel writes, hey, John, smaller movies should be cheaper to watch. Would that help the industry? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. See, that's been a big debate for a long time, and we won't rehash the entire debate here. But here's the problem. If you try to suggest that smaller movies can be cheaper to get into and go to, you're begging for a number of problems. The first problem is this. The movie industry won't cheapen smaller movies. They'll make bigger movies more expensive and then say, there, now the smaller movies are less expensive than the bigger movies. They won't lower the ticket price for smaller movies. They'll just increase the prices for the bigger movies. And then say, see, it's cheaper to go to the smaller movies than the bigger ones. Aren't we nice? When really they didn't lower ticket prices at all. They actually raised ticket prices. That's the hole we'll fall into. The other big problem that movie theaters will fall into is, hey, if I can get into a theater for a $5 ticket for Bobby Meets His Third Mom, I just made up a title. Bobby Meets His Third Mom is a small indie film. And so AMC only charges you $5 for that ticket. Well, what's going to happen is a bunch of people who want to go see Avengers 7, which is $20 a ticket, probably $30 a ticket. A bunch of people will buy their $5 Bobby Meets His Third Mom tickets, get into the theater, and then just go into the Avengers theater. I mean, it's one thing that already happens when all the tickets are the same price. It's going to happen a hell of a lot more if you got some movies, people just walk up to the box office. What movie? What's the cheapest one here? Bobby Meets His Third Mom? Yeah. Give me 7 tickets to that. Yeah. Give me 7 tickets to Bobby Meets His Third Mom. Really? You don't look like you're interested in a movie like that. No, I've been dying to see it. Believe me. Trust me. I've been dying to see Bobby Meets His Third Mom. Gets the 7 tickets. They all go in to watch Avengers 7. I mean, there's a lot of potential pitfalls and downfalls with that. Although in principle, I get it. Because I've talked about that myself too, man. So great minds. Alan Peaks writes, a callback to a topic a few weeks ago, A-list benefits from Disney that all their IPs set up must-see TV. That's why it's so successful. Agree? A callback to a topic a few weeks ago, A-list benefits from Disney that all their IPs set up must-see TV. That's why it's so successful. Agree? No, I don't agree. I think everything that's happening in the movie world contributes to the success of A-list and vice versa. I just think for a long time, when you look at MoviePass, the reason MoviePass caught on with fans is the idea of getting something that can save us money to continue going to the movies in an age that it's really expensive to go to the movies. Movie fans have been waiting to eat that up. Regardless of what Disney's doing or what DC is doing or what Warner Brothers is doing or what Paramount's doing or what Lionsgate's doing or what Sony's doing or what Universal's doing, it's almost irrelevant to that. Film fans have been aching for a while to have options that give us more economically reasonable ways of going to see the movies we love. That's why when MoviePass came out, it instantly took off. Even though it looked shady and even though it went to hell, it took off instantly. And that's why I think something like A-list, that's the main reason. Will anything that Disney has done contribute to that? Sure. But I think everything about the movie industry contributes to it. But anyway, that's just my thought. All right. Jesse writes, think there's any chance Sony moves forward with the current story arc and not mention MCU links now that Peter's more independent, or will Marvel not allow it because, say, if New York City blows up, would the MCU be held to it? Well, so here's the thing. This is all theoretical because I'm hoping... I'm still hoping, with all fingers crossed, I'm still hoping and believe that there is hope that Disney and Marvel work this out, or Disney and Sony work this out. I still believe that is a real possibility. But let's say it doesn't. Okay, theoretically, let's say it doesn't. Sony, if they choose, they can completely carry on with Peter's story, but they have to ignore everything that was an MCU element, right? So they can carry on with Peter and MJ and Ned, and they can even say that, J. Jonah outed him. They can't say under what the circumstances was that he was outed. They can't mention, well, I guess they could mention Mysterio told the world, because Mysterio is a character that falls under their purview, but they can't talk about anything that involved Happy Hogan or anything like that. But at that point, the universes become separate universes. So now anything that Peter does and Spider-Man does in the Sonyverse, they can blow up New York City in the Sonyverse if they want. That does not affect or have any, they can't keep it connected. Sony can carry on the Spider-Man story, but the moment they do, they disconnect from the MCU. So that anything the MCU does not affect Spider-Man's Sonyverse films, and anything that happens in Spider-Man's Sonyverse films has no effect on the MCU. They will then be two separate universes. We're simply talking about what's their starting point. And if Sony decides, I'm not saying they'll do this, I'm not even saying they should do it, I'm saying if Sony decided to continue on Peter's arc, but they'd have to leave Tony Stark out of it at this point, then that can be their starting point. But from that point on, it's a completely separate universe in the MCU, and they don't have any effect on each other. All right, Neobites writes, John, huge fan here. Thank you, Neobites. I saw It Chapter 2 advanced screening in Austin this week. I loved every second of the 3-hour runtime. What will the final Rotten Tomatoes score be? I have no idea, but I heard pretty good things. I mean, this is what I heard. I heard people really liked it, but most people didn't love it, but they all liked it. And all a positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes needs is a critic to like it. That's all they need. They just need the critics to like it. And right now, it sounded like everybody was liking it. Now, there is no Rotten Tomatoes score right now, so I'm going to guess it's going to be in the 85% range. My guess is that's going to be in the 85% range. The review embargo has not lifted yet, so there's no review score yet. But I'm hearing from a lot of people, good, not great, but that means they're going to give it a positive score. So it's probably going to end up around, I'm going to guess 85%. That's just a random guess. I haven't seen it yet myself. I have no plans on watching it until it opens in theaters. So we'll see. All right, Coolsome XT writes, to be frank, Batman's parents get killed more than Uncle Ben does. That's true. We all make fun of, I do this too. We all make fun of how many times they kill Uncle Ben. But you're right. You know, the Waynes die just as much. Suthius writes, Spider-Man, Mickey's a homewrecker instead of Far From Home. Spider-Man, Mickey's a homewrecker. I like that. Suthius, I agree with Ben. You don't have to apologize for things that you need to make the show more comfortable for y'all. AC, sipping drinks, bathroom, etc. Yeah, no. But I think I do. I think, look, there are certain things that I need to do on the show sometimes that lowers the production value a little, or I know in a little bit I'm gonna have to turn on the AC. It's a warm morning here in the San Fernando Valley, so in a little bit I'll probably have to turn on the AC. That means there's going to be a little bit of an annoying sound in the background, and I don't like that. And so I do want to. I feel like I should apologize for that. And you know, I'm talking straight for a couple of hours. I need to sip on liquids, or my throat gets real raw, real fast, and I'm not able to speak anymore. I know I need to do it. But at the same time, I understand it's a little bit distracting for the audience when I constantly need to drink something. But unlike talk shows you see on television or whatever, where they all have commercial breaks every 10 minutes, where they can take drinks and use the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, I'm going straight for 2 hours with no commercial breaks. Other than this. You know, that's my commercial break sometimes when I do it, but it's not commercial breaks, but I still feel like I should, acknowledge it to the audience that, hey, I apologize. I need to turn on the AC. Hey, sorry about this, but we need to take a little bit of a break. Like, I know it's required. I need to do it in order to be able to do the show properly. But at the same time, I also acknowledge that it's a little bit of an inconvenience for the audience. And so I acknowledge it with a little apology. I think it's okay. Anyway, Calvin Bose writes, over under 70% we will ever see a new Star Trek movie. I'll take over on that. I wouldn't say 100%, but you use the word ever. Whenever you use the word ever, the answer is almost always yes, regardless of what the question is. You can almost ask any question you want, put in the word ever, and it almost becomes 100% certainty at that point. Now, I don't think we're going to get a new Star Trek movie this year. I don't think we're going to get a new Star Trek movie next year, but I do think we've got a pretty good chance of getting another Star Trek movie in some way, shape, or form within the next 5 to 6 to 7 years. So I will definitely take over 70% on that. Nick writes, are we okay with Far From Home ending that won't be resolved? Sure. Look, honestly, the Far From Home ending was resolved. The ending of Far From Home, done. The story was finished. And then they just threw open a couple of doors in a quick post-credit scene. I don't care. I really don't. It's not like Spider-Man Far From Home was setting up Spider-Man 3, where the entire movie of Spider-Man Far From Home was laying all this groundwork for Spider-Man 3 and then they just left it. The movie concluded. The movie had an end. Spider-Man Far From Home had a beginning, middle, end, done. And then they opened up a can of worms in the post-credit scene. Yes, I'm totally okay if they don't follow through on that post-credit scene. I mean, if Disney and Sony come to an agreement, well, no, you got to follow up on that. But honestly, no, we don't. It was a post-credit scene. It was a great post-credit scene, but it was still just a post-credit scene nonetheless, right? The movie itself wrapped up. Had a beginning, had a middle, had an end, wrapped up. And then they did the post-credit scene. If they don't go anywhere with that, fine. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. Would I like them to? Sure. If Sony and Disney continue the deal, yes. But otherwise, we're okay with that. And the last one we're getting caught up on from yesterday comes to us from Nick, who writes, if not resolved, Peter's identity, I now hate it. Again, Nick, you're talking about something that they threw in a post-credit scene. I mean, yeah, it was big and it was explosive, but we're still talking about a post-credit scene. So I personally wouldn't get all that worked up about it. I mean, did I love it? Yeah, I loved it. That was the best part of the movie. But it was still just a post-credit scene, channeling my inner Allen Iverson. Post-credit scene? We're talking about a post-credit scene? It's still just a post-credit scene. Who cares? That I didn't love it. I did. And if Disney and Sony work it out, they'll definitely follow up on it. But ultimately it's not all that brutally important, I don't think. All right. Now, with all that stuff down, let's get on now to the questions that you guys have sent in today. All right, we're going to get things going here with Suthius, who writes, "Hey, Mr. C, that's 2.5. That 2.5 hour companion video has got to be the longest one from a single show. It was news that big. Everyone was awake and alert for sure." Yeah, so I had to do, whenever I don't get through all the questions that get sent in, I do a companion video. And the companion video from Thursday, it ended up being over 2.5 hours. And that's just from the questions I didn't get to during the live show. It was crazy. It was long, but it was fun. It was fun to talk about. And you're right. It's a big topic. It's a big issue. Everybody had a point of view. Everybody had something they wanted to throw in. And that's great. That's the fun thing about being movie fans when we get stuff to talk about like that. All right. Suthius writes, "There's a question yesterday asking if Scoot McNairy will be in Shang-Chi. Don't forget, he was in the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King. I don't remember him in that at all." Really? I mean, I saw All Hail the King with Ben Kingsley in prison, but I don't remember Scoot McNairy being in that. Okay, that's interesting. That puts that into a bigger because somebody asked that about, you think Scoot McNairy will be in Shang-Chi? I'm like, why would Scoot McNairy be in Shang-Chi? I guess because he was in the All Hail the King. I didn't remember, even when you mentioned it, I still don't remember him in it, but I'll take your word for it. Orange Hand writes, "Could his Dark Materials be the next Thrones?" Well, we talked on the show yesterday about all these different shows coming out and how the studios are all hoping this will be the next Game of Thrones. This will be the next Game of Thrones. Maybe this will be the next Game of Thrones. And I said the one that I think has the most potential to be the next Game of Thrones is the Lord of the Rings series. Not just because of its great mythology, but also because of all the talent that are behind the camera of it, and the fact that Amazon is putting their money where their mouth is, and this is going to be the most expensive television series of all time. Throwing money at it won't make it good, but at least tells us that Amazon is completely all in. But could Dark? Sure. Yeah, it's got as good a chance as any. Absolutely. Isaac Beebe writes, "Okay, John, the ultimate battle. Who wins? Dominic Toretto versus Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers. I don't even think there's a way Vin Diesel, who I love me some Vin Diesel, but I don't even think there's a way for Vin Diesel to, with a straight face, write a script where Fred Rogers doesn't dominate that battle." Jersey Kid writes, "I love the new Spider-Man. It's the way it should be done. I hear Disney had a hand in Venom, which was great in my opinion." They had very little to do with Venom, which is great in my opinion. I understand the business deal, but do you think Sony can do it on their own? Absolutely. 100% Disney. Remember, everybody who's saying Venom will never work. You can't do Venom without Spider-Man. It'll never work. It worked. It was a real fun movie. Not an Oscar contender by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a real fun movie. Made well over $800 million at the box office. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. Man, I'm telling you what, an animated Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales, not Peter. No one's going to go see this. I thought the movie was a bad idea. No one's going to go see this. You'll be lucky if this thing makes $100 million. You'll be lucky if this thing makes $100 million. Well, it blew past $300 million, it made money for the studio, and won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, and is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. And don't forget, every other live-action Spider-Man movie Sony ever produced, none of them made under $700 million. Every single live-action Spider-Man movie that they've ever done has made over $700 million. Can they do it on their own? Yeah. I mean, honestly, so I've said this before, you don't have to agree, and that's cool because this is subjective. But to me, Marvel has never made a Spider-Man movie as good as two of the Sony ones. Marvel, Homecoming and Far From Home, nowhere near as good as Into the Spider-Verse. Homecoming, Far From Home, which I like very much, neither of them are as good as Spider-Man 2. I'd say they're both either as good as or better than the first Spider-Man. They're both, Far From Home and Homecoming are both better than both of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, even though I actually really quite like the first Amazing Spider-Man. The second one, not so much. But I think Far From Home and Homecoming are both better than the two Amazing Spider-Man movies. But so, look, you can have the opinion that Sony can't do it on their own, and I respect that. But if you want to look at the facts and the evidence, maybe they can't do it on their own, but all the evidence says they can. Even their worst Spider-Man movie made over $700 million. And they've made the best Spider-Man movies so far. Can they do it? Oh, hell yes. All the evidence says yes. All the evidence says yes. That doesn't mean they will. They could completely crap the bed, fall on their face, and totally fail. Absolutely, they could. But if we're going to base our speculation on what facts we have in front of us, Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 2, not a single movie that they did live action with Spider-Man made under $700 million. Venom was a huge hit when everybody said it wouldn't be. All the facts say they can do it. Doesn't mean they will. And it doesn't mean you're wrong if you think they won't. But I'm just saying, if I'm going to base my guess, and it is just a guess, if I'm going to base my guess on the facts we have in front of us, then I got to say, yeah, Sony absolutely can do it without Marvel. And Marvel can totally move on without Spider-Man. It won't be as good for Sony, and it won't be as good for Marvel, but they both can do it. So that's how I feel about it at any rate. Suthius writes, very cool to see your gaming table have multi-uses. Yes, so what he's talking about is yesterday. I don't know if I can get this in here. Maybe I will. Yesterday, we played, I put up a little video clip of us playing our Star Wars role-playing game. Let's see if I can give you an image of it here. Yeah, well, this is at least the thumbnail of it. We were playing our Star Wars role-playing game last night, or the other day we played. We played on Wednesday, and then yesterday I put up a little clip of us playing the game. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you enjoyed seeing it. I had fun playing. I love playing that game, man. I love playing that game, and I love the people I'm playing with too. It's great. Rob was supposed to play, but then he does some stuff for Netflix, and stuff came up, and he had to do work, so Rob wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. But we had a really good time playing, the rest of us. All right. Rick and Company writes, even in the current Spidey situation, it's amazing to think we've had 2 MCU Spider-Man movies before we'll ever get a second Hulk movie in the MCU. Well, yeah, remember though, those are different scenarios. Those are different scenarios. The complicated situation between Marvel and Universal is a very different set of circumstances than the situation between Marvel and Sony. They're very different circumstances. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I enjoy very much Infinity War and Endgame, I've got to say that unfortunately, whereas I used to be dying to see a new Hulk movie and salivating to see a new Hulk movie, I have to say, as much as I love Endgame and Infinity War, one of the negative outcomes of those movies is that I've lost any interest in seeing another Hulk movie. What they did to the Hulk, and I respect what they did. They were trying something new. They were trying something different, and it caused for a couple of really interesting moments, and I respect it. I do. But for me, the end result was I have lost any interest in seeing a standalone Hulk movie. I didn't like what they did with the Hulk. They neutered the Hulk, and that's unfortunate to me. So it's a different circumstance, and quite frankly, I've lost my interest in seeing a Hulk movie anyway because I don't like what they did with them. I just don't. Anyway, Jonathan Vigoa writes, how does the Spidey breakup affect the Far From Home rerun? How does the Spidey breakup affect the Far From Home rerun? I'm sorry, Jonathan. I apologize. I'm not understanding what it is you're saying. If you guys know what it is, Jonathan, for those of you watching live, if you know what it is Jonathan's asking, can you jump into the comment section and leave your thoughts there? All right. This is the advantage of all of us as a community being able to answer questions. I don't know what they mean, but maybe a lot of you guys do. Maybe you can answer the question, so please do that. Fun Overlord X writes, hello, John. Huge fan of the 2003 SWAT movie with LAPD Sergeant Nick Fury. What are the odds of getting a sequel? Too late? I'd pay $100 million. Oh, zero. That was also with Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell, yeah. So, hold on a second. Let me just see if I can find it here. If I'm remembering it correctly, the movie didn't make any money. Let's see. Who was in that? It was... Colin Farrell, Michelle Rodriguez was in that. I totally forgot Jeremy Renner was in that. I totally forgot that. Anyway, movie made $200 million at the box office. So there's no, and it wasn't really well critically received. I'm with you. I got a kick out of that movie. Fun Overlord. I got a kick out of that movie. I did. But it wasn't really well received. it didn't do great at the box office, and it's been 16 years. So I'd say, never say zero, but I'd say at best you're looking at a 1% chance that it ever happens. N. Hureta writes, unfortunately, Disney bought Fox. Rated R Deadpool would have been a field day with this Super Spider-Man situation. Go Kings, go. Well, listen, it's still not impossible that Deadpool could end up rated R. But what it does look like is that Disney is going to put Deadpool into the MCU. And by putting Deadpool into the MCU, you can sit there and say all day, oh, there's ways you could do it and still have it rated R. You and I can sit here all day and come up with all the different ways you could do it. But it doesn't matter if you can come up with a way that they could do it or if I come up with a way that I think could happen. Fact of the matter is, I do not think Bob Iger or Alan Horn are going to let anything that's inside the MCU be rated R. I just don't think there's any way they do it. And you and I can sit here and talk till we're blue in the face and come up with ideas and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't believe that Bob Iger or Alan Horn or the board of Disney will ever allow R-rated stuff that they say is in the MCU. Iger's been pretty adamant about that, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I think what's going to happen here is that Deadpool does end up in the MCU, and as a result, it's going to be rated PG-13. Which is a massive reversal from what they said at CinemaCon. At CinemaCon, they reaffirmed Deadpool is going to stay under Fox. It's not going to be in the MCU. It's going to be rated R, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, they did a complete about-face, changed their mind, and said, well, now it's going to be under Kevin Feige and in the MCU. Well, there goes R-rated Deadpool, which is unfortunate. But there's still a chance. Until it happens, you know the saying, while there's time, there's hope. There's still time. Maybe there's not a lot of hope, but there's still some. So let's keep our fingers crossed. All right. Andres Martinez writes, shout out to Hollywood this week for all the news. A lot of news coming out of Hollywood this week, Andres. Absolutely no doubt about it, buddy. All right. Ranger 8 writes, which show would I binge first? True Detective or Mindhunters? Whoo. I'll be honest, this might not be a popular answer. I prefer Mindhunters. Especially if you're talking about multiple seasons. Let's make it even. First 2 seasons of True Detective, first 2 seasons of Mindhunter. Definitely say Mindhunter. Season 1 of Mindhunter, season 1 of True Detective, I actually still lean towards Mindhunter. I really like True Detective. And I still haven't seen season 3 with Mahershala Ali, and I need to get around to that. But I actually go Mindhunter. Benny95 writes, have you finished Mindhunter season 2 yet? Yes. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that yesterday I was a little bit under the weather. So I got caught up and finished watching Mindhunter season 2. Loved it. I think I liked it more than season 1, and I loved season 1. Anyway, final 2 episodes are insanely tense. Also, that creepy musical strings that plays with Holt's kids, it's freaky AF. It is. I'm telling you what, at first, when they started Bill's kid's story in season 2, I was like, seems like a lame side story. But as they went more into it over the season, I'm like, oh, wait, this might be the best thing about this season. Honestly, I think by the end of it, Bill's struggle with his son, and I'm not going to go into details, by the end of the final episode, I'm like, I might think this is the best part of this show this year. And I didn't even like the storyline when they started it earlier in the season. But I just fell in love with it. Yeah, man, so good. So good. Benny95 writes, also, did you receive my email links of Toby in the MCU? Oh, I did. Those were cute. They were cute. I didn't think they were all that great. I'll be honest with you. I was expecting to see like a 15-minute video with like some reels, but it was cute. It was cute. I did get a giggle out of it. Hoser Miaz writes, when the Mandalorian trailer today time. When the Mandalorian, who knows? The panel, the Disney Plus panel, I believe is at 3:30. this afternoon. I need to check in 2 hours early. So I need to check in at 1:30, which means as soon as I'm done the show today, I got to hit the road and drive out to Anaheim for the convention. But so it'll probably drop around 3:30 to 4 o'clock, I'm guessing. And then I'll probably do my report probably about 5:30. So I'll do a live stream talking all about it, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm assuming that Disney will then drop it online as well. So there's that. That was Mia's. Patrick Conway writes, bought bow and arrow from Jeremy Renner's Amazon store. I didn't even know Jeremy Renner had an Amazon store. That's a pretty cool thing to get. How much was it? I'm going to have to look that up later. I'm curious to know how much that cost. Ryan Lohner writes, probably no chance, but how awesome would it be if Mindhunter got up to... Sorry. How awesome would it be if Mindhunter got up to Aileen... Runos and Charlize Theron's back. Are you talking about like the character from Monster? Is that what we're talking about? Let me look it up to see if that's what we're talking about. Hold on a second. I don't know if we are. That's the 2003 Charlize Theron movie where she won the Academy Award. That is. Yeah, that it was her character's name. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to go up. I don't think that's one they'll get into. I agree, Ryan. It probably wouldn't get into that. That would be fascinating, though. All right. JB Bonifacio writes, Campea, you are a god if Rothman Feige crotch chop. I'm telling you what, I'm holding out hope that it happens. For those of you, let me see if I can bring this up here. For those of you who don't know what it is I'm talking about, let me see if I can find it here. And let me see if I can bring it up. I'm not sure I can. But yeah, So what I wrote on Twitter the other day, I wrote, D23 prediction, Iger on stage. There's been a lot of talk about Spider-Man. Well, I want to bring up my good friend Tom Rothman. All of a sudden, the DX music starts to play. All of it starts to play, and they grab mics and proclaim, we're making 10 more movies, mother effers. And then they start doing the DX. Can you imagine on D23 on the stage, seeing Tom Rothman and Bob, trying to picture Bob Iger in my head, doing a Triple H there and doing the crotch chop with this heavy DX music playing in the background. I'm telling you what, I would lose my shit. I would totally lose my shit if we could see Bob Iger on stage doing that, proclaiming that. Now look, that is clearly not going to happen. That's clear, but I do believe it is possible. That Bob Iger is able to announce from the stage of D23 that they and Sony have come to an agreement. I do believe that's possible. Maybe not the crotch chop, but I do believe that it is completely possible that we could see that happen. So, well, we'll have to wait and see. Okay. Harry Mudd says, ever seen Body of Proof? Good crime show with Jerry Ryan and Dana Delaney. Ran for 3 seasons. No, I never did see it. I remember because Jerry Ryan was in it, I was curious about it, but I don't watch a ton of television. I watch more television today than I ever did because of all the shows that are out there, but I don't watch a ton of television. And unfortunately, even though I was kind of interested because of Jerry Ryan, who was in Voyager, I was curious about it, but I never did get around to it. Paul sends in a super chat. Thank you, Paul. Zentrixu writes, I really love Star Wars Episode 8, but I can understand for some people the casino scenes are not working. Kudos to Rian Johnson. He got my support. Look, overall, I like The Last Jedi. I enjoyed The Last Jedi. I do. I particularly like the stuff that they did with Luke. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was very consistent with the character and all that kind of stuff. But the very first tweet, I remember I came out of the world premiere of it. And if you look back, you can find my very first thing that I tweeted when I came out of it. And it was basically this. This is as I was walking from the premiere to the after party. I wrote, overall, I liked it. But I thought Benicio del Toro's character was a complete waste. And everything that had to do with the casino planet was awful. Overall, I like the movie. Yeah, look, The Last Jedi to me is a movie where it's like, look, I quite enjoyed it. Rian Johnson tried something bold and new and different, and a lot of it worked for me. But you could totally understand why it wouldn't work for some people. Now, I'll argue with people over certain elements of it, sure, but I can still get why people wouldn't like it. But it worked for me. Okay. We're at Hervé Bailly writes, the THR reports Disney wanted 30. What's going on? Again, that I think was probably the second deal. I've got a feeling that was the second deal. Plus, you got to keep in mind, part of that 30 was they wanted a co-financing agreement. They wanted a co-financing agreement, which is a big no-no and a huge thing that Sony cannot allow to happen. They might allow it to happen, but if they do, they're idiots. So we'll see what happens. But again, Deadline report responded to that, and they're staying firm. No, the initial thing they went to them with was a 50-50. They may have countered again to something like that, including co-financing, but we'll see what happens. Jose Reyes writes, why the media hasn't covered the Amazon forest fire? Dude, you're asking me something that's way outside of my purview. That's a huge world issue that has nothing to do with the world of entertainment. You're asking the wrong guy. I have absolutely no idea about that, but they should be. Imperfect Comic writes, hey, John, Marvel/Disney is done producing Spider-Man movies, but who's to say they won't make another deal to add Spidey in a future new Avengers movie? I don't think Spidey is 100% out. Your thoughts? I'll tell you this. If this deal is off, you will not see Spider-Man in a new Avengers movie. There is no way Sony will allow Disney to use Spider-Man in their movies. No way. Unless they have an agreement, that's not going to happen. Because Sony is not going to be wanting to make their live-action Spider-Man movies and then have another live-action Spider-Man in somebody else's movies. They would never allow it. They would never allow it. They would have to be the world's biggest idiots to allow it. And they're not the world's biggest idiots. They can be idiots, but maybe not the world's biggest idiots. But yeah, there's no way. And by the way, there's no way Marvel would want to do that. They wouldn't want to put a live-action Spider-Man. If they have a live-action Spider-Man in their Avengers movies, they don't want another live-action Spider-Man out there. So it wouldn't work for either of them. So that's not. So unless they come together for an overall deal, that unfortunately, Imperfect Comic is something that would never happen. Sheepdog117 writes, will this affect Disneyland's future Spider-Man ride? I don't think so. Remember, you're talking about a completely different universe. Theme park licenses are completely divorced from movie and television licenses. They can be negotiated at the same time, but they're really two different things. So, no, I don't think this would affect anything about Disneyland's future Spider-Man ride. I don't know anything about the ride, to be honest, but it wouldn't and shouldn't affect it. Unless Disney decides they don't want to do it anymore. But otherwise, I think it's a totally separate thing. All right, Nick Markins writes, hey, John. Last year, Hasbro said they were considering making another Power Rangers movie. In July, they said they were making a reboot. Do you think, since they keep talking about it, that we will eventually get another movie eventually? Yes. Now, look, I take everything I say with a grain of salt. Half of my household income comes from Hasbro. My wife, Ann, is a senior person over at Hasbro. So Hasbro contributes a lot of money to the Campea household. So just let me be clear about that. Personally, I don't care. I really don't care if we ever get another Power Rangers movie. But to your question, no, they absolutely are going to make another Power Rangers. It won't be a sequel to the one they just did last year or 2 years ago. It won't be a sequel to that one. But they will do another Power Rangers movie. I mean, they bought this IP and they spent a lot of money to buy the Power Rangers IP, and they're going to take advantage of it on every level. They're going to take advantage of it in animated. They're going to take advantage of it in the movies. They're going to take advantage of it in toys. They are going to exploit this a lot, and they should. So I have 100% faith and belief that they will absolutely make another one. It just won't be a sequel to the previous one. That's all. And that's my thoughts on that, Nick. So there you go. And by the way, thank you. That's a really generous super chat, Nick. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, sir. I appreciate it. And I hope that answers your question. That yes, we are going to get another one. Eventually, it is going to happen. Captain Lakari writes, just watch The Saint, Rounders, and Ali back to back. Wow, The Saint. The Saint with Batman. If I'm thinking about the correct one, that's the one with Val Kilmer, right? I like The Saint. I like The Saint. And as far as Rounders, I mean, Rounders is great. Rounders is great. And Ali, hey, listen, Will Smith got an Academy Award nomination for that performance. Some people still today, and it's hard to argue, some people still today think that might be Will Smith's best performance ever. He was great in that. That's a nice movie day right there, Captain. That's a nice movie day. Bruce Gordon writes, Venom in the MCU, Sony and Disney kiss and make up. I mean, it would be cool to see. I don't think Sony has, and look, Sony, I believe, wants to have their own movie universe going and have Spider-Man in the MCU. Make no mistake, Sony wants Spider-Man in the MCU. They do. As long as Disney isn't making them bend over and take it up the cornhole in order to do it. They want this deal. Sony wants a deal. They do. But I think they want their... So I'm not quite sure we'd see Venom in the MCU. I don't think we'd see Venom in the MCU. I think, they'll continue on with Venom, but I think Sony really wants to be able to make their own movies with all Spider-Man's characters and have Spider-Man over in the MCU. That's the way I think they want to do it at any rate. Toonie2 writes, over under 30%, we will get a new Justice League movie within the next 10 years. Oh, within the next 10? 30%? Oh, I'll go way over on that. Yeah. No. We will absolutely get a new Justice League movie. I ain't saying what it's going to look like or what characters will or won't be in it or what actors will or won't be in it. But within the next 10 years in Hollywood is an eternity. An absolute eternity. So, yeah, absolutely way over 30% that within the next 10 years we get another one. Willow Yang writes, the anniversary is a tour de force in filmmaking. I laughed, I wept, I was entranced by the artistry of the credits. It's the work of a true genius. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad, Willow, that you have good taste. Of course, Willow's talking about my little movie, The Anniversary. Thank you for the kind words, even if it is a little bit of hyperbole going in there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And isn't Aaron great in it? I think Aaron's one of the best things about the movie. So Aaron Cummings is in my little movie, The Anniversary, that I did so many years ago. So thank you, Willow. I appreciate that. Harry Mudd writes, I agree that Netflix stinks at marketing their stuff, but I think they are trying to get better, John. Oh, I agree. I think they are starting to realize... Look, here's the thing about Netflix. Forever, for years and years, they've got to be the only kid on the block doing what they're doing. It's Netflix or nothing. So they could get away with doing things a certain way. But now we're entering into a new world where there is stiff competition in the world of online streaming. We got, HBO Max coming. We got Universal Comcast thing coming. We've got Apple TV Plus coming. We've got Disney Plus coming. Amazon's really stepping up their game. Hulu is going to get new investment from Disney. I mean, it is now a different world than what Netflix has been used to. And I think they are starting to respond by doing some things. And I already think we're starting to see them make some minor changes, Harry. Sully writes, I just saw a video claiming that Sony Disney worked it out and they gave a ton of details about the new deal, but I couldn't find any articles to support the story. Have you heard anything about this? Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Look, everybody knows that there is a decent chance that Sony and Marvel do work out a deal. Here's the thing. Okay, look. Here's a little inside mud for you with this whole online industry of which I am a part. All right. This whole online movie punditry industry. What will happen sometimes, and I know some particular people that do this blatantly, but when there is something that is obviously coming, right? There are sites. Have you ever heard the term, just throwing it and see what sticks? Have you ever heard that term? Just throw against the wall and see what sticks. There have been a number of times, and this has happened many, many times, when there looks like there's a very good chance of something happening very shortly. And then what'll happen is some outlet will take a gamble, roll the dice, and put out an article or video or whatever saying, we can report that this is going to happen. And if it does happen, it looks like they were in the know. And if it doesn't happen, they just sweep it under the rug and everybody forgets about it. But it's not based on real information. It's just based on throwing against the wall and see what sticks. We all know that with D23 this weekend, and we all know with the stakes being as high as they are, and we all know with the fans loving the current arrangement, we all know that Sony and Disney have some fire under their feet to try to get a deal done if they can. And we all know that there is a possibility it could get done. But I don't believe, I know the source of where this came from, and I don't buy it. It doesn't mean it's impossible. Let's be clear here. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I don't buy it. I think this is a lot of throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks. Because if this weekend comes and goes and no deal's announced, it'll just be swept away. It'll just be swept under the rug and nobody will mention it again. But if it turns out that Disney and Sony do get a deal done, they can look like geniuses, right? It happens a lot in this business because we all know that they may very well, there is a chance they may get a deal done. But I would say don't pay attention to it right now. I really would. It's not coming from any reliable source. Again, it does not mean it's impossible. And I believe I've been saying for days that I think a deal can possibly get made. A deal can get made. But as far as this particular information, I wouldn't pay attention to it until there's something to pay attention to. That's just my opinion. Initial D's writes, happy Friday, John and crew. JC, I hope you got some rest. I did. Again, I only got 2 hours sleep the night before. It made me feel completely under weather the whole rest of the day. But I slept 7.5 hours last night, which is the most I've slept in months, which is great. So I woke up this morning feeling a lot better, ready to go to D23. All right, thank you for that, Initial. All right, Father of a Legend writes, hey, John, I feel Disney was trying to be Sony's symbiote suit, and Sony had to go to the bell tower. Beautiful analogy. Beautiful analogy. I like that's a really good way to construct that. I like the allegory there. Yeah. Now look, at the end of the day, it's going to take both of these guys to make this thing happen. It's going to take Sony willing to budge a little. It's going to take Disney needing to budge a lot, but it can get done. It can get done. Let's just see if it actually does. All right. Initial D's writes, JC, the gifts I mentioned yesterday were on Twitter. You, Forky, and Deadpool, and Aaron scolding. I saw you like them, but now I know you like a million things a day. Well, not a million things a day. I wasn't quite sure which ones you're talking about. I know those ones. Now that you mentioned those ones specifically, I do remember I had Deadpool and Forky. Actually, Deadpool's back on the shelf over there. But I had Forky and Deadpool doing my illustration of how rights and rights transfers work and stuff like that. I remember that. And Aaron's one. So yes, I remember those. If you mention them specifically, I'll probably remember. If you just say the gifts I sent, then I might go, I have hundreds of gifts sent to me every day. So you got to be a little bit more specific, but I do remember those ones initial, and those ones are cute. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Tortimer the Gray Gaming writes, I love that name. I know that Tom is likely Spidey for the next couple of films, but if/when he is done, is there a chance Sony goes with Miles as opposed to a fourth Peter? I mean, is there a chance? Oh, of course there's a chance, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would bet they do Miles animated and they go live action with Peter. Live action Peter is where the money is. Miles is not where the money is. But you can continue doing Miles' stories in the animated Spider-Verse. So they could carry on with two completely different Spider-Man stories. They can have the animated Spider-Verse featuring Miles Morales. They could then have their live action featuring Peter Parker, make a lot of money at both, have a lot of success at both. So is there a chance? Yeah, there is a chance for sure. But I would suspect what they would do is animated Miles, live action Peter. That's what I suspect that they would do. It seems to be the one that would offer them the most box office at any rate. Neobites writes, saw it Chapter 2 at a press screening at ATX with Rooster Teeth. Loved every second of the 3 hours. I posted my review on my channel and was wondering, what do you think the final score on the Rotten Tomatoes will be? Well, I apologize, Neo. Obviously, you sent that in yesterday, and I did get around to answering it. Maybe you thought I just was going to ignore it, but I didn't. I already answered your question, you see. But again, I'm not sure. I'm going to guess around 85. I'm going to guess around 85%. And, what I'm hearing is that most people that I know saw it quite liked it, but didn't love it. But still, quite liking it means it's a positive score, and that's what will go towards the Rotten Tomatoes thing. So I'm going to guess around 85. Also sending this extra bit because I love your channel. Thank you so much, Neobites. I appreciate it, man. And I'm sorry I didn't get around to your question yesterday. But as you know, if I ever don't get around to a question, I will get caught up on it. Keep that in mind, guys. Father of a Legend writes, did you get a chance to see I Am Patrick Swayze from Paramount? No, I did not. But I'm interested. I'm interested. That sounds interesting to me, but no, I have not had a chance to see that yet. Tortimer the Gray Gaming writes, over under 30% MoviePass accidentally left their customers' data server unsecured because they have been selling data under the table and want a scapegoat. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't put it past, because they're so shady, I wouldn't put anything past MoviePass, but there are smarter ways to do it. There are other ways. If they wanted to sell user data, they didn't have to do it by leaving a server unpassword protected. There are many ways they could have done it and done it more quietly and without risking going to jail. But so I'm going to guess that's probably not the situation. It's not something that I would put past them, but I don't think that's the specific situation right now. All right. Harry Mudd writes, free enterprise is on Tube TV. Really? I don't even know what Tube, do you mean YouTube TV? Or I don't know what Tube TV is. What's Tube TV? I have no idea. Jonathan Teft writes, sends in a really large super chat. Thank you, Jonathan, for supporting the channel on that level, buddy. As we go into the fall, here's my top 10 of 2019 so far. 1, The Art of Self-Defense, which a lot of people love. 2, The Farewell. 3, Endgame. 4, Shazam. 5, The Mustang. 6, Rocketman. 7, Hotel Mumbai. 8, Blinded by the Light. 9, The Peanut Butter Falcon. 10, Toy Story 4. That's a good list. I still have, you don't have mine up there. My number 1 is still Booksmart. My number 1 is still Booksmart. And I love Lion King. I know not everybody does. That's fine. I love Lion King. I think Lion King's amazing. But it didn't work for everyone in that school. That's a good list right there. That's a really good list. Well done, Jonathan. Well done. And Jonathan writes, 2019 has been a pretty solid year for movies. It really has. You know, it's funny. It feels like every year the same thing happens. A bunch of us grumble, oh, so many disappointments this year. And then we stop and actually look at the list of all the really good movies that come out this year. And then we go, oh, this was actually pretty good. You know, I feel like the last 5 years or so, there have been this pattern. It starts with all of us going, wow, this has been a pretty disappointing year. But then we actually list out the great films and we go, oh, well, actually, maybe this has been a pretty good year for films. I think, I agree with you, Jonathan. I think this has been a pretty solid year for film, myself personally. All right. Frankie Gouge writes, Pete Dead Meat Thompson is dead. So is Mo Green, Tattaglia, Barzini, the heads of all 5 families. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, Pete Dead Meat Thompson is from Hot Shots. Tattaglia, Barzini is from Godfather. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at, Frankie. I apologize if I'm missing something obvious here, but I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. Anyway, Frankie also follows up with, I want the knife, please. Again, I don't know what that's referring to. Frankie Gouge writes, my favorite dance scene, Salma Hayek from Dusk Till Dawn. Also, one of the best soundtracks ever. I like Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know if it's one of the best soundtracks ever. And I think, and it is sexy dance. You got the big white snake. To me, one of the sexiest dances actually is, you know, without nudity being, like real nudity being involved, but Jessica Alba in Sin City. Jessica Alba in Sin City. Matthew D. Frieta. Let me try this. Matthew D. Friitas writes, saw Mindhunter episodes 1 and 2. Get it now. Amazing. Do you mean seasons 1 and 2, or you just watch episodes 1 and 2? And did you watch episode 1 and 2 of season 1 or season 2? So I'm not sure. Either way, Mindhunter is amazing, and I'm glad you're on board with it. All right. Harry Mudd writes, calling it your job, don't make it right, boss. That's some Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke right there. Don't make it right, boss. What we got here is a failure to communicate. Have you guys never seen Cool Hand Luke? Watch the great Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke. Chris Warden writes, hey, John, what has 2 thumbs and likes mayo on hot dogs? This guy. Hashtag no pineapple on pizza, no ketchup on eggs. Hashtag judgmental bastards unite. That's right. I remember watching Endgame. And it starts with that scene with Hawkeye and his daughter. And the mom yells out, yeah, what do you want on your, you want ketchup, mustard, or mayonnaise on your hot dogs? And the daughter looks at Hawkeye and says, who has mayo on hot dogs? I do, you little brat. You ungrateful little brat. You just shut your mouth. This guy likes mayo on his hot dogs. This guy right here loves mayo on my hot dogs and on my hamburgers. So you shut your little bratty mouth, kid. I'm glad you dusted. There, I said it. Everybody around the world right now is going, oh, that's right. I'm glad she dusted. Screw her. You know what? I bet the universe was going to let her live. I bet the universe was going to let her live when Thanos did his snap. And then she had to open her little brat mouth and speak disparagingly against the glory that is mayo on hot dogs. I'm glad she dusted. There, I said it. I said what we were all thinking. I'm glad she dusted. Screw that kid. Anyway. Okay. Chris Miner writes, where are we at? Chris Miner writes, hope you had a great weekend, John. Better duo of films, Finding Nemo / Finding Dory or Monsters, Inc. / Monsters U. I'm going to say Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. I actually think Monsters, Inc. is a little bit better than Finding Nemo. But I also think Finding Dory is great. Whereas I think Monsters U was good. I think Monsters U was good. But I'm going to say that the gap between Finding Dory and Monsters U is better than the gap between Monsters, Inc. and Nemo. So I'm going to say overall, Nemo and Finding Dory is the better pair. That's it's all open. It's subjective, of course, but that's just my opinion. CJ Adams writes, my friend thinks Spider-Man is worth $5 billion for Disney to buy. I disagree. Say Sony offers to sell film rights for $5 billion. And am I wrong? Should Disney buy? No, Disney should not buy it for $5 billion. No. Plus, Disney doesn't have $5 billion sitting around to spend. They just spent half of their net worth buying Fox. Disney right now is not in a buying mode at the moment. They just spent $71 billion. They spent half their net worth buying Fox. So, no, I do not suspect that we're going to see, and so no, but even in the best of days, I would say no, that's a little bit too much. Because think about it. You would have to get that $5 billion back, you would probably need to make 9 Spider-Man movies that all made $1 billion or more. You'd probably need to make 9 Spider-Man movies that all hit $1 billion just to recoup the $5 billion you spent to get the character. Now, there's an argument to be made about, well, then you can have them in other films and the other benefit. I agree. I don't think $5 billion is completely ludicrous of a number, but I think it's a little too high for that. I would think if Sony went, and I don't think Sony would sell it for any less than $5 billion. Because you're not only talking about Spider-Man, but they've got all these other characters they want to make movies with. I think if Sony went to Disney with an offer of, we'll sell you Spider-Man back for $3 billion, not that I think Sony would make that offer. Sony wouldn't make that offer. But if they did, and they said $3 billion, maybe I could see Disney taking that. I could maybe see Disney taking that, but again, Disney is not a buyer right now. They just spent so much of their capital. It's crazy. So I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see. Jesse writes, I wonder what Sony can or can't use from the previous deal moving forward. Obviously not Tony, but what about Edith? Could they still use it and not mention it's Tony's tech? It'll be interesting to see. Well, that's where it gets complicated, Jesse, because Edith is introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home. Because it's introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home, anything that's introduced in it belongs to Sony. But even though it's introduced in Far From Home, it is introduced in such a way that is directly connected to Stark Industries. Stark Industries is not something Sony can get. So something like that becomes a big question mark. MJ, Ned, all that stuff, Sony can use them. But things that have direct, overt connections to Marvel property, I'm not sure. So something like Edith would become one of the big question marks. I don't think it's important, but it is fascinating. I'd have to see how that one would shake out because it falls under both. It's connected to a Marvel character with Stark and Stark Industries, so you can't. But it's introduced in Far From Home, which Sony financed exclusively, therefore it's there. So they can, but they can't, but they can. So that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm not sure what the answer to that would be. I would guess they wouldn't use it. Because it was introduced but introduced completely in every way connected to Tony Stark and Stark Industries. Hell, all the Edith drones even come out of a big thing in space with the big branding Stark Industries on it. I'm going to guess no, but I would be fascinated to know what the actual answer to that is. All right. Hey, listen, guys, we've been going for about an hour and a half now. So with your indulgence, I'm going to take a quick 3.5-minute break here just to give my voice just a little bit of a rest and refill my drink. So we will continue on with our movie discussions here today in just a bit. Give me 3.5 minutes and we will be right back. Hang tight. I'll see you guys in just a moment. right, and we are back. Thank you guys for your patience and your indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there and got to refill my drink, get the AC turned on here and cool the room down a bit. So, all right, with that down, let's now keep things rolling and get through the rest of the questions for today. All right, where do we leave off? We left off with Oh, that question about E. That's a good question, by the way. It's a fascinating one to think about. ZMG Ruler writes, Disney asked for 30, not 50. Turns out Sony, nope. Remember, Deadline is still holding to that. They're saying, no, it wasn't. They went 50-50. Disney went in there with 50-50. And maybe a counter came in at 70-30, but it wasn't just 70-30. It was 70-30 with a co-financing agreement, which in essence steals some of Sony's rights, which they cannot do. Just 70-30 box office split isn't completely unreasonable. But box office split plus co-financing, that's something Sony cannot allow themselves to give up, because if they do, they're screwing themselves in the future. Franklin Donahue writes, how do you rate Seth Rogen as a producer following his recent run? Would his involvement in a project make it more appealing to you? It really all depends on the project. It depends on the project. Because remember, producer, unless you're the producer, because a movie can have like 14 or 15 different people listed as some sort of producer. Producer, executive producer, co-executive producer, associate producer. You can have like a bunch of them. There's been a number of things that Rogen's been a producer on that he's been the producer. You know, something like, well, let's take Good Boys, which is hilarious. Anything he's a producer on that's a comedy, straight up comedy, yeah. But, you know, the movie wasn't all that good in putting in a lot of heart. But then again, he's not the director. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. All I know is that I am a Seth Rogen fan. I think the dude's funny. I think he's got it's not just that he comes up with great stuff. His natural comedic performance is so good, and he's got such good comedic timing. He's clearly got really good business sense too. I don't love everything he's done and put out, but you know, I think right now I'm still kind of in a wait and see idea. Dill Pickle writes, Cosmic Book News reported that an agreement has been made between Disney and Sony. I've already addressed that. I'm not going to address it anymore. Rocky Ganoa writes, Venom and Spider-Man teaming up in the next Venom movie. I dig it. I mean, look, I doubt it. But they're working on the script right now. I can't help but wonder, though, if this deal between Sony and Marvel doesn't get done, I wonder if Sony will be patient and not rush him in, or if Andy Serkis is right now sitting back going, yes, and actually put Spider-Man in a Venom movie. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I got a feeling they might be more patient. I got a feeling they might be patient with it and not rush him in there. Okay, where are we at here? Sorry, we had a bit of a jump. Where are we at? Coolsome XD writes, if no deal is reached, what's going to happen first? Sony's Spider-Man movie or Spider-Man in Venom 3? For a Sony Spider-Man movie, I think the first thing that would happen is a Sony Spider-Man before Spider-Man in Venom 3. Because I think a Sony Spider-Man movie would happen probably within the next 2 to 3 years. Whereas we're not getting Venom for another 3 to 4 to 5, Venom 3 in another 3 to 4 to 5 years. So I think the first thing that would happen out of those two options is a Sony Spider-Man movie. But then again, let's hope that none of that happens. Let's hope that the Disney and Sony can get their deal done if Disney can get their mouse ears out of their asses. All right. Sharan Aurora writes, Season 2 of Mindhunter is a lot like Zodiac. I love it. I actually like it a lot more than Zodiac. I like Zodiac, but I don't like it as much as a lot of other people do. So I personally think Mindhunter is better than Zodiac. Eric Huffman writes, do you think the controversy about Captain Marvel having a feminist agenda will also surround Birds of Prey and Black Widow? I don't think so, because it's not going to have nearly as much attention as Captain Marvel did. The higher the profile project, the more that sort of nonsense follows. So I don't think so, because I honestly, I don't think there's a lot of people interested in Birds of Prey. Hell, I like all the DC movies, and I'm not all that interested in Birds of Prey. I got to admit, I'm becoming a little bit more, you know, when Ewan McGregor joined, and, you know, maybe some of the possible plot details, I should say, it's got me a little bit more interested. But this is a movie that's not going to be nearly as high profile as Captain Marvel did, so therefore I don't think it's going to have the amount of controversy or garbage go along with it. Matt Thornton writes, I recently lost my dad to cancer. That's horrible, man. I'm so sorry to hear about that. We were quite opposite, as he was never a movie guy, but before he passed, he told me he had never seen Shawshank. Oh, God. We watched it together, and it meant so much to me. Dude, that is the most beautiful thing I'm going to hear all day. I mean, to start with, obviously, deepest condolences on the loss of your dad. So sorry to hear about that. But, you know, we often talk about around here the notion that movies are shared experiences. I mean, first of all, they're just experiential events, but when they can be shared experiences, like I remember who I was with when I saw Star Wars. I remember who I was with when I saw Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I remember who I was with and where I was when I first saw Infinity War. I remember where I was and who I was with when I saw the first Avengers movie. I remember where I was and who I saw Man of Steel with. They are shared experiences. And the fact that you got to have that kind of a shared experience with your dad, which I'm sure was very special to him, but is now something you get to carry with you for the rest of your life. And it's important no matter what movie it is. Even if it's Assassin's Creed, it's important, regardless of the movie, it's important. But when it can be like also one of the greatest motion pictures of all time in Shawshank Redemption, it just adds that extra layer of specialness to it. And first of all, Matt, I got to say, obviously condolences for that, but thank you, I got to say, for sharing that story. That's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about or to write out, but I think that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, may that movie just be even more of a treasure to you as you move on in your life. Now, when you have kids, you got to watch Shawshank with them. You know, that's amazing, dude. Thank you for sharing that. That's the best thing I'm going to hear all day. Unless this happens. This might be the best thing I see today, if that happens with Bob Iger and Tom Rothman. But no, even if that happened, I got to say, Matt, your story is the best thing I'm going to see today. So thank you for sharing that, dude. All right. Orlando Rodriguez sends in a large super chat. Thank you, Orlando, for supporting the channel on that level. He writes, one of two. How do you save the Alien franchise? Good question. I think the next Aliens movie should be based on an alien race that has the unique ability you control the xenomorphs as warlike dogs and try and take over an Earth colony, and the colonial marines are sent in for an all-out land and space battle, CGI the hell out of it, like the battle above Endor and a mix of Hoth and the last battle in Endgame. What do you think? I mean, look, it's... anything can work. I mean, that's whatever. I think the issue is not make a big battle. I don't know that that's the answer. The answer to how do you save the Aliens franchise starts on a philosophical level. What are the aliens, number one? What kind of movie do we want to make, number two? Now, I wasn't a big fan of Prometheus, but I did like what they were sort of going for. What they seem to be going for in Prometheus, at least from my point of view, was an angle of combining the pure horror aspects of the original Alien with the action elements of Aliens 2, but understanding that there's an amalgamation there. So I don't know that turning Alien into Avengers Endgame is the answer. To be honest with you, I don't know that that's the answer. Have big, epic, planet-wide battles. Well, I don't know that turning, because that's, at its core, that's not what Alien is. Alien is not a giant comic book movie. Alien's a horror franchise, you know? And that's why the second Aliens is my second all-time favorite action film, even though it's really an action/horror film. It really is. It's a brilliant horror film. It's a brilliant action film. And I believe that the key to really getting Aliens back to its prominence lays in there somewhere. Not in turning Aliens into a video game movie. Not in turning Aliens into a comic book movie. I mean, yeah, like some of the stuff you're describing, to be frank, sounds like it'd be a cool scene, but I don't base a philosophy of a movie around that. To me, it's getting back to those horror elements, but doing it a lot better. Building in the tension, the suspense with great action and stuff like that. And again, to me, very, very few movies in history have ever done it better than Aliens 2. Well, it's just Aliens. Very few movies in history has ever done it that well. But that begs the question then, Orlando, can the Alien franchise or even be saved? I mean, is there an argument to be made that it's done? It's played out. There's nowhere left to go. You've done everything that you can do that's even remotely interesting with it. Time to let it go. Maybe, and then maybe reboot it in a few years and but if you reboot it, start from the beginning. Make it a movie like that original Alien. Go that way. I don't think the answer, once again, is to turn it into a comic book movie or to turn it into a video game movie, I don't think the answer is by starting with thinking about the big set pieces. I don't think a good place to start when trying to conceptualize what a movie could be, because if you're starting out with, here's what the big action scene would be, well, then that's not sure footing. That's not a solid foundation to build the concept for a film franchise around, So I think it's about getting back to the roots of the original Alien, which is really looking more to its horror roots. But anyway, that's just my opinion on that. That's just my opinion. There are a million ways to skin a cat, as they say, and a lot of different ones can work in different ways, and maybe that one will work tremendously. It will be interesting to see, though, Orlando, if they're able to get this, if Disney really, truly does decide to keep moving forward and to try to do something with that franchise. I think they're planning on doing something with apes, so why not do something with aliens? It'll be interesting to see which way they go with it. It'll be interesting to see which way. I just hope they make it rated R. Because if they do, that means they are going to go towards that horror element. If they don't, it means they're going more towards the comic book way. And I think the key is to get back to horror. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. I'm sure a lot of people will get very excited about your description of it as well. But we'll see. We'll see what Disney decides to do with it. I think there's a lot of possibilities, though. Okay, Pat Fury writes, so Deadpool killed Ryan Reynolds. So Deadpool killed Ryan Reynolds was funny, but did he know that he is played by Ryan Reynolds? And that's supposed to change history. Greetings from Switzerland. I have no idea what we're talking about. The only thing I know that is anything like that was that initial announcement video they put out where Ryan Reynolds was talking to, what was it, Access Hollywood, and announcing that we're going to do Deadpool PG-13. Deadpool's going to be PG-13. This was years ago before the first Deadpool came out. And then Deadpool comes out and kills Ryan Reynolds. And like, no, we're doing rated R. And that's how they announced it was rated R. But if they've done something else that is in that, I'm unfamiliar with it at this point, Pat. All right, Stubble McShave writes, how many MCU scripts must be reworked if no Spider-Man? Not a lot. Because let's look at it. What do we got? We got Black Widow coming out. That wasn't going to involve Spider-Man in any way, shape, or form. So that's gone. Thor, Love and Thunder. That wasn't going to involve Spider-Man in any way, shape, or form. That's gone. We've got WandaVision. I don't see why they would have had any mention of Spider-Man in WandaVision. So that's gone. The Hawkeye show. I see no reason they would have had any Spider-Man mentioned in that. So that's gone. I don't think Spider-Man would have had anything to do with Black Panther. I don't think Spider-Man would have had to do, I mean, if anything, maybe Doctor Strange 2 might have had Spider-Man in their concept, but Guardians of the Galaxy 3 wasn't going to have any Spider-Man in it. So honestly, I don't think many, if any at all. I really don't. If any changes even have to be made, and I don't know that there are any, but if there are, they're probably just very, very minor ones. Initial D's writes, Cosmic Book News has an article about the New Deal. I'm not going to say anything. Ozer Miaz writes, Sony was 70-30. Again, that's been refuted by Deadline saying, no, it was 50-50. It may have countered at 70-30, but again, the important thing here is it's not just revenue split. They're asking for a co-financing agreement, and that's the big part that's going to hold up Sony, and hopefully they don't give in to that. Orlando Rodriguez writes, 2 to 3. Apologize for being off topic, but I believe the Colonial Marines is what's been missing from what I believe is the best movie in the franchise, Aliens. I mean, yes and no, but even then, it was the aliens themselves and what they did there. But what worked in Aliens wasn't a big army of them. It was just this small group. It's a small group of people. And that's very classic horror, right? A small group of people at a cabin in the woods, a small group of people at this haunted mansion, a small group of people. That's kind of like one of the essential DNA things. So I don't know that bringing in an army of the Marines is the answer. To me, that's feels a little bit like you're just trying to make it a video game movie or a comic book movie. And I don't think that's what Aliens is, personally. But like you're mentioning that thing about aliens, like getting back to some of those roots. And I'm certainly not opposed to having, marine elements in it for sure. But I mean, I think it's more about getting back to those roots. That's not off topic. You're talking about the movie stuff, Orlando. That's not off topic at all. Joe Byram writes, Disney, bend the knee. Sony, you shall always be my queen. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Coolsome XD writes, I'm hoping for KH3 DLC. I have no idea what we're talking about. Guys, please don't use acronyms because you're going to run the risk that I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about. Michael G. Scott writes, Nathan Fillion was born to play the lead role of Nathan Drake, not anymore. Have you seen his indie short? Yes, I did. It was great. By the way, Stephen Lang was in that as well, which was great. He was fantastic, and I hope they cast him as an adult Drake. They can't, and they won't. I mean, at 7 years ago, maybe. Hold on a second. Hey, Google, how old is Nathan Fillion?
Nathan Fillion is 48 years old.
Nathan Fillion's 48. He's almost 50. I think like that little YouTube video that they did, that short little film is great. And I enjoyed it very much. As a short one-shot YouTube video, I thought it was fantastic and wonderful. I loved it for what it was. And again, you had Stephen Lang in there too, which I thought was great. But can you start this franchise with him being 50? I don't think so. I think the time for that has passed, unfortunately. I think the time for that has passed. That doesn't mean we can't have a lot of great stuff with Nathan Fillion, who is amazing. But I just think the time for that has passed, unfortunately. Razor's Edge Frisbee writes, John, Farewell was incredible. Favorite of the year so far. Aquafina was great. I've never had to hold back tears several times after a movie. 10 out of 10. Dude, I'm here for so. And by the way, so I'm going out to Anaheim, and I'm going to stay in Anaheim at Disneyland through Sunday. And I think during that time, Ann and I are finally seeing The Farewell. Because I'm just sick and tired of hearing from everybody that it's like the best movie of the year. So I've got to get around to seeing it. I'm glad you saw Razor. Everybody who's seen it has come back and telling me it's either the best movie of the year or one of the best movies of the year. I think I heard from one person. That wasn't totally thrilled with it. But I'm excited for it. Thanks for giving your input on that, Razor. All right, Neo Bites writes, sorry, the double up on question. No, don't apologize. I apologize that you felt the need to do it, right? I need to make sure that I make it very, very clear that if by the end of a show we didn't get around to your question, don't worry about it. Your question is getting answered in a video, whether it's on the John Campea Show or in a companion video. If you send in a super chat, it will get answered. And you have no need to apologize for doubling up. I apologize that you felt like you needed to double up. So that's on me. That's not on you. That's on me. So anyway, but I appreciate the good thought there, Neobite. All right, Ben Rayner writes, the winner, quote unquote, of the worst Netflix movie, Sextuplets. Marlon Wayans is Sextuplets, looking for each other. Trailer looks so awful. I can't bring myself to watch the entire movie. I haven't even watched the trailer. I just heard the concept of it. And I'm like, nope. Just nope. And that new John Cena Fireman movie? Nope. Just a whole lot of nope. Now, look, for all we know, Ben, these movies could end up being the best movies of the year. Now, you said yourself, you haven't even seen the movie, so you can't say Sextuplets is the worst movie on Netflix. Maybe it's Oscar worthy. I doubt it. I have no desire to even see it. Just the concept makes it sound like it's a truck full of nope. Nope. No, sir. But yeah, it does sound other. And then, my God, that John Cena Fireman movie looks just terrible. How did that get made? I have no idea. The Hero writes, shout out to actor Lee Pace. His Ronan the Accuser was great. I like his Ronan the Accuser. Not to mention Thranduil in the Hobbit films. I really liked him in that as well. The fierce presence he brings feels unique. Yes, it does. And he's playing DeLorean in that new movie. In that movie he did with Jason Sudeikis. Obviously, really like him in *Halt and Catch Fire*. I think that was the name of the one. Yeah, *Halt and Catch Fire*. Is that the name of the one? Sorry, I keep forgetting the one. The invention of the computer movie. Hold on a second. *Halt and Catch Fire*. Yes, that was the name of it with Lee Pace. Which, by the way, Aaron Cummings was in. Aaron Cummings was in *Halt and Catch Fire*, and I don't remember her episode. I got to go through that whole entire thing now again and watch that again. By the way, how great is Mackenzie Davis in that show, by the way? She's so good. Okay, anyway. Deus Anima writes, I heard Sony has the live-action TV rights and animated TV rights to shows over 44 minutes in length. That's a little different from what I've heard, although the minutiae of that I'm not sure. I believe, first of all, Disney can't do anything live action Spider-Man. That's period. They can't do anything live action Spider-Man, TV or movies. But I don't know that Sony has any television rights at all. I just don't know. I'm sure that's what you read somewhere, but I'm sure we could read 100 different things. So it's interesting. I just don't know the details on that level. I just simply don't know. All I know is that what I've heard is that Disney can't do anything live action Spider-Man, can't do anything theatrical, but they can do television, whether it's, they can do animated television, and that Sony can't do TV. That's my understanding, but I could be wrong about that. I could totally be wrong about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Suthius writes, starting to not care anymore. Life and MCU goes on. It does. I mean, that's why when I said on my show yesterday, look, does Sony need Disney? No. Does Disney need Sony and Spider-Man? No. It's of great benefit to both of them. I think Sony would benefit greatly from a deal. I think Disney would benefit greatly from a deal. But do either of them need each other? Like the world is going to fall apart for both of them if they don't have this deal? No. No, they'll both be okay. They'll both be fine. The world will go on. It's just that it would be beneficial for them both. Suthius writes, Inglourious Basterds has turned 10 this week. Really? Has Inglourious Basterds 10 years since? I guess it is. Because it was before remember I always tell the story. I watched the movie again with a girl because she wanted to watch it. And that was when I was in LA, but before I was dating Anne. So yeah, I guess it's got to be turning 10. I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. Alpha Oedraogo writes, missed opportunity. When Hulk says he'll snap because the stones radiate mostly gamma, the snap should have turned him into the World Breaker Hulk for end fight. Well, first of all, Alpha, I think Hulk in general was a missed opportunity in that, but you just pissed me off because you're absolutely right. You could have done in Endgame Professor Hulk. You wanted Professor Hulk, fine. There you go. He's Professor Hulk. La la la, I'm Professor Hulk. But then they had an opportunity to give us back the Hulk we really want, which is Hulk. And they totally could have been him infusing himself with all that gamma radiation and blah, blah, of reverting him back to Hulk. You're right. And you just pissed me off. Now that I think about it, you're right. That is a way they could have easily still had Professor Hulk in the rest of the film and then brought out the real Hulk, not just for the end fight, but also for the MCU moving forward. You're absolutely right. It was a missed opportunity. Boy Chow Shang writes, I don't understand what Disney's role is in terms of the ownership of Spider-Man. Why do they get anything off the Spider-Man character anyways? Because that's the deal. The deal they've made with Sony is that Disney, Kevin Feige will produce the new standalone, the standalone movies. So he does a bunch of work on the movies. And they say that Spider-Man is in the MCU, which means that an Iron Man can show up in a Spider-Man movie. And they'll put Spider-Man in these other things and blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's part of the deal. Yeah, they should definitely get something out of it. I mean, absolutely for sure. But that's all been a part of the deal because Kevin Feige does the producing on those. Not alone, granted, but he does a lot of producing and they get to bring in other MCU characters. Like Nick Fury can show up in Spider-Man Far From Home because of that deal, right? So there's a lot of different give and take benefits. It's really of the benefit for both of these companies to have this deal, and I really hope they work it out. Suthius writes, Nat Geo's new docuseries this fall with Goldblum. Yes, I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. I know very, very little about it at this point, but first of all, Jeff Goldblum narrating or doing anything, but particularly narrating something for Nat Geo, that sounds great to me. I'm on board. Epic Berserker writes, Hey GC, hope you have a fun time at D23. I was going tomorrow and Sunday, but plans had to be canceled due to my wife being induced for labor. Sunday having a baby boy. My son Peter, LOL, damn Spidey. Well, nothing else matters. Epic. D23 is great. I'm sure we're going to have fun, but that's nothing. That's nothing. You're having the birth of a child. That is huge. So congratulations to you and your spouse. I hope everything goes swimmingly. What an amazing thing. That is great, man. And I can't think of many better reasons to skip D23 than for something like that. That sounds amazing, man. Congrats to you and your family, dude. All right. Suthius writes, sorry, had another bump. Where are we at? Here we are. Suthius writes, fairly unknown Andrew Koji now cast as Storm Shadow. Yeah, I haven't heard that yet. Made that news just break today. I have not heard about that so long. I like the way that this, again, full disclosure, half of my household income comes from Hasbro, just so you know. But I love the casting of Snake Eyes. I love the casting of Snake Eyes. Getting Golding in there, Henry Golding in there. I thought that was a great move. So I'll go look into this thing a little bit later. Thanks for the heads up, Suthius. Frankie Gouch writes, I want the knife is, the Golden Child. Man, listen, it is hilarious to look at today. But, I mean, a lot of people look very badly on the Golden Child, right? I must be purged. I thought Golden Child was great. Golden Child is one of my favorite Eddie Murphy comedies. And people look at me like I'm an idiot when I say that. But really, Golden Child is actually one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies. I love Golden Child. Suthius writes, I've had mayo on hot dogs since little. So good. Damn right. Damn right. Mayo on hot dogs. Frankie Gouge writes, Hot Shots quote, start of Adam Benson eulogy. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I can't remember. Suthius writes, whenever I see headline of see so-and-so don a new suit in the new upcoming so-and-so movie TV show, and it turns out to be fan art, it's annoying. Oh, I know. There are a couple of websites that are particularly awful at that. Like, see so-and-so as Mr. Fantastic, and it gets because they intentionally do that to get people to go, wait a minute, they've cast Mr. Fantastic for Fantastic Four? And it's actually see so-and-so, and it's fan art, right? I hate that. I think that's really cheesy and really underhanded. Again, look, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying I don't like it. Let's just put that. I don't like that. Because I think by design it's meant to be deceptive. You know what else I don't like? And hopefully I have not maybe I've done this accidentally myself too. This is what I don't like. See, what real clickbait is, and some of my favorite sites do this, is they don't give you a headline. Let's say this. Let's say Harrison Ford talks about, I'm not going to be Han Solo anymore. Okay, I mean, just follow me here, right? The headline of that, if you want to make that a story, even though it's obvious, is Harrison Ford expresses, why he's not going to be Han Solo anymore. You put the news, what the story is, in the headline, right? What some sites do now is discover what Harrison Ford says about his future as Han Solo. What is that? Put the news in the headline. Harrison Ford confirms he's not going to play Han Solo anymore. Not discover what Harrison Ford says about his future of Han Solo. I hate that. See, that is clickbait. And I hope, like, I've had a lot of people accuse me, John, your title is clickbait. And I look at the title, I'm like, no, that's the exact topic. Well, the title is the topic. That's the topic. I mean, that's what we're discussing. That's the topic. I don't know how, but it's when you won't believe what Harrison Ford says about Carrie Fisher. What is that? You know, just put it, I'm making this up. Harrison Ford says Carrie Fisher drank too much coffee on set of Star Wars. Then make that your headline, not, you won't believe what Harrison Ford said about Carrie Fisher. I hate that. Hate that. And what really bothers me is when you understand that is what clickbait is, and then I get people like yelling at me sometimes that, oh, that title is so clickbait. What are you talking about? That's the story. That's the issue we're discussing. What? Anyway, that bothers me. Anyway, Rocky Ganoa writes, August 30th, another Joker trailer. Can't wait. Did they announce that that's when they're dropping another trailer? I knew it would be soon. So that's probably in about another week or so. Yes, I'm excited about it. I cannot believe how stoked I am for this movie. I've been excited about this movie from day one that they announced it. I cannot wait to see this damn thing. Nick writes, did you like the new THX Deep Note logo intro? I haven't seen it yet myself. Haven't seen it. I've heard a couple people talk about it, but I haven't seen it yet. Pretty epic, eh? Did you notice it was evolutionary? Went from Big Bang to the distant future. Again, Nick, I haven't seen it yet myself. I've had a couple people mention it, but I have not seen it myself, so I can't comment on it yet myself. But I am excited to check it out because I used to love that at the beginning of the movie. That THX, like I used to love that. So I'm very interested to check out the new one. All right. Where are we at here? Suthius writes, took my wife to 2 movies when she came to the States, Dragon Ball Evolution and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. She has not gone back since. I was going to say, as I'm reading the movies you took her to, I'm like, and that one? And then you ended it with, and she's not, I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Yeah, I can't blame her. It's funny because Anne's sorority sister, one of Anne's friends from college, is in Dragon Ball Evolution as well. Jamie Chung, who of course then went on to be in, she ended up being Ed Helms' wife in The Hangover, and she was in the show that I really love that I'm so sad Fox canceled, The Gifted. She played Blink in Gifted. She was one of the lead voices in Big Hero 6. I think Jamie Chung is great. She's so great. And she was in Dragon Ball Evolution, so I wish I could like it. She was also in Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch, which is a beautiful looking movie, but is actually quite a bad film, unfortunately. Yeah, so anyway, there's that. Yeah, not a good first 2 movies to take your wife to. Not a good first 2 movies to take your wife to. ZMG Ruler writes, didn't Fox pay you for Extraordinary Gentlemen? Well, I guess, but okay. But to be fair, I wasn't yet a movie pundit. Like when... so what ZMG Rule is talking about is the visual effects company that I worked with. We did our company. We did some work on The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with Sean Connery. Terrible movie, but one of the main shots that we did was the Invisible Man on fire. So the Invisible Man's running on those. That's visual effects shots that our company did. So technically, yes, I did get money from Fox in a roundabout, indirect way, but I wasn't yet working in, I hadn't launched the movie blog. I wasn't yet a movie pundit, so I can leave that one out. I'm safe to leave that one out. But that you're not wrong. It's just I can leave that one out because I wasn't, actually even a movie pundit yet. Nick writes, what's your favorite pre-movie production company logo intro? And which version? Mine's Universal's 100th anniversary, showing all of its past versions. That one's very good, but I'm actually going to go, and the Marvel one is really good. I like the new DC one, but honestly, Pixar. There's something beautiful in the simplicity of bong, 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 boop. There's something beautiful and nostalgic and charming and wonderful in the simplicity of it. So for me, while that one's great, there's a number of great ones, but for me, it's the Pixar one. That's the one for me that I really, really like. J Master Legend, we're final couple of questions here, guys, and we're going to wrap it up today. J Master Legend writes, Your favorite underrated comic book film is Man of Steel. Mine are Watchmen, Punisher Warzone. I love Punisher Warzone. Love that film. And Sin City. Oh, I don't think Sin City's underrated. Nobody underrates Sin City. Everybody who's seen Sin City knows how good Sin City is. But anyway, I feel these are underrated. Top 10 favorites of mine. I love them. Listen, I remember when Punisher Warzone came out. And I'd already heard other people saying they didn't like it. And so I went in to go watch it. I'm like, what? What is everybody smoking? This movie's great. It was visceral and violent and all that kind of stuff. And I really like Punisher Warzone. I think Punisher Warzone is great. And I'm forgetting the name of the guy who played, hold on a second. Punisher Warzone. I'm thinking it was Dominic West who played, hold on a second, who played Jigsaw. Where did it go? Yes, it was Dominic West. So I actually really like Dominic West as Jigsaw. Obviously, Ray Stevens. It was a great Punisher. But what Lexi Alexander did as the director of that movie, I just thought she brought a visceralness to the Punisher that was what it really needed. Like, clearly, they didn't have the biggest budget on that movie. But Lexi, she took what she had, and she just really boiled it down to the inherent violence of what the Punisher is. And it was just such a gloriously visceral experience. I love Punisher Warzone, and a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people did not like that movie at all, and that's one of those movies where, what are you talking about? This is great. This is great. But yeah, a lot of people didn't dig it, but I'm with you. I think that is an underrated movie. I think that's an underrated movie. Final question of the day, guys, comes to us from BMC, who writes, man, the scene in Mindhunter Season 2 when that kid's mom went to Bill Tench's house to forgive Brian's mom was so damn powerful. Oh my God. Like, this is the thing. When you can create scenes that have powerful impacts when it's just a couple people sitting down in a room talking, that's some great filmmaking. Even though we're talking about television, that's some great filmmaking. It's one of the reasons, BMC, why I talk so much about Tom Hooper's movie, The King's Speech. King's Speech is one of my favorite Best Picture winning films of the past 15 years. I think it is stunningly brilliant. It really is. But my favorite scene in that movie is that scene when they're just sitting in that sparse room in two chairs across from each other, just talking. And that scene is so ridiculously good, and it tells you just how special of a filmmaker Tom is. And I got that same sense, even though it was very different subject matter, obviously. I got that same sense watching that scene in Mindhunter Season 2 as the mom of the dead kid and her friend are sitting there with Bill's wife and just talking. I felt my heart breaking. I felt every muscle in my body was tense. It was just so well orchestrated, so well executed. It's just a brilliant scene. Brilliant scene, and I absolutely loved it. And I love it when narrative television or filmmakers can give those types of scenes and tell those types of stories in that particular way. I just adore it, and I love it. Anyway, guys, that will do it, guys, for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm about to go pack up my last couple of things. I'm going to head into Anaheim for a couple of days. Going to go to D23, see what they got to say, see how much they dance around the Spider-Man issue, how big they try to avoid that elephant in the room, but maybe, just maybe, they announce a deal has been made, which would be the best thing for everybody. I'm wondering considering how much I've been dumping on Disney the last couple of days, I'm wondering how warm my reception will be from my Disney people that are there. Whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm very curious. And don't forget, guys, later this afternoon, I guess it'll be a little bit like early this evening, Pacific Standard Time, probably around 5:30 or 6. I will be doing a live stream tonight to give you my reaction and my wrap up of the Disney Plus presentation, which is what I'm seeing this afternoon. And then tomorrow I'll do a live stream giving my wrap up and breakdown and thoughts on the Disney pictures. presentation that's happening tomorrow morning. So keep up to date and checked in on that. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me on this Friday as we head into a glorious weekend. Here's hoping some Spider-Man news comes out of D23. My name is John Campea, guys, and until next time, bye-bye.